Amazing. So many years of experience makes me sound very old. Right, the clicker's working, which is problem number one. Hello everybody, my name is Jack Brown. As Anna mentioned and stole on my slide, I am the head of paid media here at Hallam. I've been working in advertising for around 8 years now, mainly running across paid search activity, but also with paid social and programmatic. I'm going to talk about quite a lot of different things, but before we jump into it, I'll introduce myself. So I started out in paid media straight out of university. I actually started in the insights and tech team, which is not the sexiest team to be part of. All of my time was basically spent building reports, adding tracking codes to websites, and writing scripts. It's a bit of a jump from where I am right now running activity, but it really taught me the value of data and the numbers and the analytical side, which is what we're going to look at today. Here at Hallam, so I specialise in paid search. It's what a lot of what I talk about is going to be focused on. But we do also run paid social, programmatic. We've essentially got any network that you can call, anything that you can think of. We're probably running some campaign for some client. I wouldn't normally call out people that walk in late, but she's in my team. I'm her manager. We'll also deal with the disciplinary later. So I do want to confront the elephant in the room, which, on the plus side, if you're in this talk about half an hour ago, 2 talks before me, my accent is nowhere near as bad as Alex's, so I probably sound like I'm speaking the Queen's English right now. I do have a dodgy northern accent. I'm going to be speaking really slowly. I'm going to kind of dial it down. Hopefully you understand me. If you don't, just lie, just nod and smile, because I will cry, and I'm an ugly crier. You don't want to see it. So I'm going to start out with a story. And this is a client that I worked with about 6 or 7 years ago. And on the left-hand side, you can see what their shopping ads looked like when I started working with them. So they, as you can imagine, are a client that sell body kits and spare parts for sports cars. Very interesting client to work with, but very expensive products and quite a niche audience, given they kind of need to own a supercar. So quite a difficult one to work on. Now, the activity on the left-hand side is what they were running when I started to work with them. And they were getting good results. They were getting good performance. They were hitting good profit targets every month. And they were happy with their good performance. The reason they came to the agency that I worked at the time is because they wanted to see if there was a way that they could squeeze out a little bit more money, edge out the competition, and take their activity from good to great. On the left-hand side, you can see the imagery that we use in the feed is very surgical and very basic. It is pull everything out of the box, stick it out on a white sheet, and lay everything out nice and neatly organized. This isn't a bad thing. It's not something to be shamed for. This is how the market was 6 or 7 years ago. Every single brand that we're up against are running the exact same imagery. How do we get better performance? The other problem that we have with this industry is that manufacturers set very, very tight pricing. We can't offer discounts, we can't run a sale, we can't get better performance by dropping budgets and offering a much cheaper cost. I put together a test. So I suggested that we test adjusting the imagery from what you can see on the left-hand side, which is that clinical, slightly boring product layout, over for lifestyle imagery on the right-hand side. If we are showing up in a search result for a £2,500 product and everybody's using the same imagery, everybody's using the same titles and descriptions, and we've all got the same price, there is no way to stand out at all. We switched over to lifestyle imagery. The entire hypothesis here when it comes to testing was that somebody that's got a £75,000 sports car probably doesn't care what comes in the box. That box is getting shipped straight to a mechanic. What's going to make them buy is the imagery that's in place. They want to know what it's going to look like on their car. So we split the budget. We spent around £800,000 on this test, with 50% going to the images on the left and 50% going to the images on the right. As you can see from the performance, it's pretty good. I don't want to sound a little bit kind of over the top, but it's quite good. When it comes to measuring performance with e-commerce and any sort of shopping activity, we use what is called the ROAS. That's the return on ad spend. Simplest way to look at it is for every £1 spent, how much are we returning in revenue? As you can see, the ads on the left-hand side, they're old ads, ran with a 740 ROAS. So for every £1 spent, we return £7.40. that was good performance. They were happy with that. They made enough money. They broke even. They got profit off the back of that 740. As you can see from the very big green on the right-hand side, the new imagery that we launched absolutely demolished that first test and their original imagery. For every pound spent, we returned £12.60. That is a 70% increase. And realistically, this took 45 minutes to implement. We had imagery that already existed. We literally switched URLs and launched a test. This is 45 minutes, and it drove them an additional £200,000 in revenue. So you're probably thinking, why am I here? How is this relevant? In my defense, you have all turned up to a very vaguely and slightly passive-aggressively named talk that did not describe this at all. It's a little bit on you. But my bet is that in some way you're running paid advertising activity, whether you are running it for your business right now, you're getting okay results, you're happy with them, and like my client, you want to see if you can go from good to great. On the flip side, you might be getting terrible results. The title resonated with you a little bit too deeply. You went through an existential crisis, and then you're here. Either way, what I can definitely say is I've been working in paid advertising for the last 8 years. I have audited 1,000 campaigns and looked at a lot of different structures to see exactly what brands are doing wrong or not doing as well as they could be, and then how do we take that from the performance that they're getting to even better results. We invest in a better clicker. I'm going to talk through 4 mistakes that I see all the time in campaigns and activity and accounts that I audit, what they're doing wrong, what you should be doing instead, and you can take all of these away and invest and implement them today. So mistake number 1 is the idea that you need to appear absolutely everywhere. This is very closely linked to kind of the other side of businesses that we work with that are so hyper-focused on one set of activity. They will only spend on Google. Facebook scares them. They don't know what TikTok is, and they're not going near it. With this talk, we're going to focus on the brands that have flipped, and they are spending everywhere. It's really, really common to see. Brands nowadays are so focused on the fact that there are 100 different devices and desktop and mobile, and do we run out of home? They want to spend on every single advertising platform. The idea being, people are everywhere. You can get them on mobile, you can get them on social, you can catch them while they're watching TV with paid advertising. Should you be investing budget and splitting what you've got available across all of those platforms? Now, put your hand up if you run the marketing activity for Tesla or Apple or Microsoft. I'm going to assume, probably not anybody in the room, we don't have that kind of budget. We've not got unlimited amount of money to spend on all of this advertising. We've got to be intelligent with which platforms we choose, which platforms we avoid, and how often we're launching tests. Network diversification is all about choosing activity and platforms that will work for your business. The biggest mistake that you can make in launching that activity is not giving it enough budget to drive performance. All of that is essentially judged by the 2 magic words of statistical significance. All this is a really fancy way of saying, are the results that you got good or bad because you ran a good or bad test, or was it a fluke? Did you get lucky? Did something else impact it? Did you get a load of revenue because it was Black Friday and everyone's buying? Statistical significance is all about understanding that you ran a test, you split the activity properly with a real structure, and the results that you get at the end to say that our lifestyle images performed much better are legitimate and can be trusted and can be redeployed across other activity. This is the first big point. Stop spreading budget too thin. If you're not spending enough money on a platform, you're losing it. It's not going to perform. A really good rule of thumb to look at is take your estimated cost per click on that platform, on that ad, multiply it by 10. If you can't afford to get 10 clicks a day for at least a month or 2 months, don't spend. It's not worth running the activity. It's a big thing we've paid where our entire job is spending other people's money, and we're kind of expected to just spend it and throw it all over the place. The biggest strength really is knowing when not to spend. If you don't waste that budget, you're potentially going to be able to re-divert it into a test or to a platform that has enough budget and you can get good performance from. So stop spreading your budget too thin. Start prioritizing statistical significance. Mistake number 2. Now, remarketing, if any of my clients are in the crowd or anyone in my team, you're probably sick of hearing me talk about remarketing. It sounds like the most basic thing in the world. Everybody knows that remarketing is just about targeting somebody that's been on your website before and trying to bring them back in. And I am constantly harping on about remarketing, but that is for good reason. If somebody comes to your website and they browse a lot of products and then they are straight out the door, they've spent nothing. You've made no revenue. If on average you're paying £2 for every click, 98% of your traffic is wasted. The average conversion rate online across all websites is 2 to 3%. That is 97 or 98% of your budget instantly wasted if you don't bring these users back on site once they've clicked the first time. Remarketing also works. Remarketing on average will drive 161% higher conversion rates than users that are hitting the site for the first time. Why are we not using it? It seems like a no-brainer. Hopefully it does, because that's kind of the point of the talk. This is the biggest tip. At the moment, you might already be running remarketing activity. You could be spending budget, you've got audience set up, but they're in existing campaigns. The big suggestion that I'm giving here, and the big mistake, is in not splitting those budgets out, or those audiences out, into their own campaign with their own dedicated budget. If I've clicked on your website and you're an e-commerce company and I've looked at 5 products, I've added them to basket, and I've got through to the shipping stage, I've seen that you're going to charge me £5 and think, I'm not paying for shipping, what year are we in? And then I've bounced off the website. If you set up a remarketing audience and you know that I've looked at the shipping page and I've dropped out at the cost of delivery, why are you not showing me an ad that has a discount code for delivery or free delivery or anything that pushes, well, if you spend more than £20, it's next day free delivery? You've got to make sure that you're tailoring the imagery and the creative and the ad copy all to what that user has done and then left. Don't just target them in the same campaign that all of your other people are coming. If you imagine that 161% higher conversion rate is fighting against somebody that has never been on site before, has no idea who you are. With Google Ads nowadays, they probably clicked your ad by accident and wasted a bit of cash. You don't want them to be fighting for budget. This is why the next big point is that you should stop adding audiences to existing campaigns and not splitting them out. You've got to start creating a dedicated campaign with tailored copy. It's the easiest thing in the world to implement. If we look at this slide, you've got your campaigns on the left-hand side. All you need to do is copy and paste those campaigns. In one side of it, exclude remarketed users. I don't want any remarketed users at all in my main campaign. That's then only users that have not been on site before. Then on the right-hand side, I've got a really nice lever to pull because everybody that's coming through those campaigns is only a remarketed user. They're worth 161% more to me because of those conversion rates. Now, mistake number 3 is all about creative, and especially running creative that is not catching the eye, it's not stopping someone from scrolling, it's not standing out at all. I did point out the GIFs. Creative is massive, it's insanely important, and it's never been more important than right now. Privacy and the loss of cookies and the whole kind of cookie apocalypse coming in 2024, we're losing granular targeting. We aren't going to be able to say this is the exact person that I want to see my advert and I know they're going to convert. Creative is now the only barrier that you have to filter out somebody that is not the right customer and somebody that is the perfect customer. If you show them the right imagery, you've got really clear assets, you've got good copy, you've got the right copy, you're going to get much better performance. You are not wasting money on people that are coming through to site and we're never actually interested. The biggest thing with creative is that you have to stop running stale, boring creative. While I was putting this deck together, the stats that I was looking at, and obviously doing my research to find some impressive numbers, in the 1970s, on average, users would see 1,000 adverts in a single day, which I did double check this across multiple different sources because that does not sound real. 1,000 adverts in a single day. So as you are walking to work, as you are driving down the road, you're seeing billboards, you're seeing ads in the paper, you're seeing ads on TV. 1,000 adverts a day. Audience participation time. Please don't leave me hanging. I will cry again. If we were seeing 1,000 adverts on average per day in the 1970s, how many adverts do we think we're seeing today? It's a bold shout. Anything less than 1 million? 10,000's better. I didn't pay her to be here. It's 7,000. So you were close. But if you think about it, 7,000 adverts in a single day is insane. Nobody is paying attention to that many adverts. How are you going to get any level of performance if you are up against 6,999 adverts? You've got to make sure that you are not running stale, boring creative, and you're running constant testing. You're seeing which call to action, which imagery, which colors, which buttons work best in your adverts. Now, the final mistake that we're going to look at is a really contentious subject at the moment, and it's the idea of prioritizing efficiency over effectiveness. A lot of people will tell you that your marketing campaign is doing really well, you're getting so much money, your revenue is amazing, but they're not telling you that they've spent 5 times as much as the revenue that they've brought back in to drive that performance. You might pay £1,000 for a lead, but you've got no idea what it's converting into. This is an over-focus on efficiency. It is how can you bring in a lead as cheap as possible, and it ignores the effectiveness. It is not looking at the quality of that lead. This is the biggest mistake. It's the biggest way you are going to lose money. But on the flip side, it's also the biggest thing that if you can move and shift what you're focusing on from the green on the left-hand side to the red on the right-hand side, you're going to be much better off. If you're driving 450 MQLs, it sounds great. It sounds like great performance. That's 450 qualified leads. But if only one of them speaks to the sales team and is the right size of business, or is the right person, they're the right age, they're the right industry, that's money wasted. You focused so much on driving those 450 marketing qualified leads. One of them was sales qualified. This is what we've got to do. We have to shift from looking at the numbers on the left-hand side, which show efficiency, to the numbers on the right-hand side, which show effectiveness. Stop over-focusing on ROAS, CPA, all of these vanity metrics that every marketer is going to tell you, we got great performance, we've got a really high ROAS. Ask for the deeper numbers. Ask for how much was spent, how much profit was actually driven. You've got to start focusing on lifetime value, customer retention rates, repeat purchase rates. That is what will grow the business. So we're coming to the end. So I'm going to summarize everything that we've gone through. We're going to go through all of the points. The biggest point at the top is not stretching your budget too far. You can't possibly think that across 15 networks, spending £10 every week, you're going to get any sort of performance. If you can't afford 10 clicks a day, don't run the activity. Remarketing, it is my baby. Please use remarketing properly. Don't just stick your audiences into the same campaign that everybody else is coming through. Set your remarketing up in a separate audience with a separate campaign and a dedicated budget. The third point on here is all about creative. All I want you to take away from this today really is that number. You are targeting users that are seeing 7,000 adverts in a single day. If your creative doesn't stand out, it's not impressive, it's not eye-catching, they're on LinkedIn and they're just going to scroll straight past and ignore it. You're not going to get any performance. The final point on here all comes down to effectiveness over efficiency. If you focus way too hard on a CPA or a ROAS and you are just solely looking at pushing the CPA in the right direction and bringing that cost down, you're going to forget about how many of those leads turned into a sale, how much revenue was driven from it. Stop focusing on metrics that solely show you efficiency and start focusing on metrics that show effectiveness and the impact on the business bottom line. Above all else, stop wasting money. I've given so many potential areas here where you can go, you can look at your activity, you can audit everything, take those points, take everything away, improve your remarketing, improve your creative, get proper testing in, and make sure that you're looking at the right numbers. Thanks for listening.